Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. The crisis in Sudan and turmoil in other parts of Africa region have sent thousands of refugees fleeing their homelands in the hope of finding better lives for themselves and their children. Many are fleeing to Egypt, where Edward Iranian reports the influx is causing a strain on resources.
As young people march for freedom on the streets of Khartoum, Sudanese refugees in Egypt like El Hadi keep a watchful eye on events back home. He asked VOA to blur his face. El Hadi says he fled Sudan in 2014 after being targeted for becoming a Christian.
The police told me to stop going to church and renounce my faith, but I said no. They beat me and hung me upside down in prison. I have torture marks on my body.
El Hadi fled to a Cairo slum after spending weeks in a Sudan jail. Here, he turns to refugee agencies for odd jobs to survive. For refugees that have left Darfur after enduring years of strife, some still dream of political change in their homeland. This refugee also asked VOA to blur his face.
I hope the Sudanese people will seize their destiny and make the president chart a course towards democracy.
Despite the struggles of daily life, Salah says Egyptians have been kind to him. Noor Khalil, an immigration lawyer, says the refugee crisis here is even worse than the official figures suggest.
230,000 refugees are officially registered with the UN in Egypt, but no one knows their real number.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi says Egypt has millions of refugees and the burden is heavy.
Egypt is hosting millions of refugees, offering them schooling and health care, despite the difficult circumstances the Egyptian people themselves have gone through in recent years.
The UN Refugee Agency says Egypt has given refugees safe haven and in some cases the right to work, to health care and to schooling. Officials say the UN also helps.
We make sure that they have access to basic services and are also supported and protected in the best way we can.
The life of a refugee in Egypt is a struggle, so much so that many go on to Libya and from there try to reach Europe by boat, a journey that many do not survive. Edward Iranian for VOA News, Cairo.
A community sports project is helping young girls in the township of Lavender Hill in Cape Town, South Africa, to deal with the difficulties of everyday life. It's an area with relatively high levels of crime where women and girls are easy targets. Have a look.
Lavender Hill in Cape Town, South Africa is famous for the wrong reasons. Mostly gang wars, shootings and drugs. But some of the residents are determined to put their neighborhood on the map for something positive. Softball started as an extracurricular activity in the community's high school, and in 2012, the Lavender Hill Softball Club was formed.
I think if there wasn't softball in the area, we probably wouldn't have these kids today. Another achievement that the club have, we've just recently 2 of the matriculants have matriculated. We got them into UWC. And most of the girls, we have about 5 or 6 that's matric this year, and last year they started talking and saying, what are they going to do? We asked them what career they're going to go, and they say, look, they don't know because their mothers and fathers don't have money to send them to college and stuff, so what are they going to do?
Marlon Peterson attended Lavender Hill High School and still lives in the neighborhood. She serves as both coach and chairperson of the team that competes at the highest club level. The club is not about sports alone. The girls are also mentored by their coaches who help them make critical decisions about their lives off the pitch. The team takes the sports very seriously. The girls train late into the evening on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, while the games are played on weekends.
Like last year and this year, we definitely became closer as a family on and off the field. And running onto the field with them today is very important because we're going to need to be with each other all the time. The strength has to be there, the momentum, everything.
Lavender Hills Super League plays in a mixed league and sometimes have to play against women more than twice their age. But their winning spirit is not dampened by anything.
What inspiration they are. You know, we all know the circumstances of Lavender Hill. And to see these girls come out every week and they come and they give it their heart, they give it their all, they are such an inspiration for us all. And I have such high hopes for them and their future.
After 2 seasons, going from just entering some league and then going to the number 1 or the number 2 spot. And what makes them significant to me is the fact that they are 14 and they are 15 and 16. I think maybe the oldest person is probably 19 in this team. So to me, it's the best thing to witness because this is the future.
The coach lists funding as a major challenge to the relatively new sport in South Africa. Players are often expected to pay their way for tournaments abroad. But with softball featuring in 2020 Olympics, Lavender Hills players hope it won't be insufficient funds that will stop them playing the games at home runs, back in Lavender Hill, and also on the world stage.
Sub-Saharan Africa needs to double annual job creation to 20 million per year for the next 2 decades if it is to absorb its growing workforce, says the International Monetary Fund. With the youngest population in the world, Uganda is one of the countries most at risk from crime and instability from youth unemployment. Halima Athmani reports from Kampala.
Ugandan youth in Katwe, a slum in the capital, Kampala, are lucky to find manual labor at factories like this one, producing metal. Uganda has the world's youngest population. 75% of the country's 43 million people are under the age of 30. But the number of unemployed is growing. Out of school and struggling to find work, Umaru Migade resorted to street crime to earn a living.
He was alone around 9 p.m. I got a hold of him and squeezed his throat till I heard it crack. He fell. I don't know if he died because I was too busy searching his pockets. I didn't know he was also looking for something to eat. After looking through his pockets, I discovered he too didn't have a single coin.
Youth unemployment, crime and instability are linked together, says analysts, and form a growing concern across Africa. The International Monetary Fund says sub-Saharan Africa is not creating enough jobs to absorb those entering the workforce.
To be able to provide employment for the growing population in the region, we are going to need to create 20 million jobs per year. And the problem with that is that in the last 5 years, the average job creation has been 10 million. So that means that we need to think a bit differently.
The IMF says private investment in sub-Saharan Africa has grown from $4 billion in the last decade to $60 billion in 2017 alone. But many African countries like Uganda are racking up debt to grow their economies, while most investments are focused on infrastructure.
Unfortunately, it's not translating into jobs in the economy. And then those projects are necessary, but let's structure them in such a way that there's a very heavy local Ugandan content, because that is being done elsewhere and it can actually translate into jobs that are very highly desired in our economy.
Meanwhile, former street criminal Umaru Migade is taking a more hands-on approach, helping Uganda's unemployed youth find healthier outlets for their frustrations. Halima Athmani for VOA News, Kampala.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can also visit us online at voaafrica.com. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Chamberlain also has our last word from Lagos.
All right, thanks, Vincent. We look forward to bringing you another show next week. Don't forget, channeltv.com is your source for news, sports, and other programming. I'm Chamberlain Uso. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.